Now getting you India-EU trade deal scoop that no one else has, where European Union has said that the India-EU trade deal is expected to double exports by 2032. Scoop 1, where no tariff will be levied on EU chemicals. There will be no tariff on 90% of EU surgical tools. Scoop 3, there will be no tariff on EU optical tools. There will be no tariff on EU-made planes or spacecrafts, and there will be lesser tariff on machinery and pharmaceuticals is what EU sources are claiming. India-EU deal, where tariffs on EU's chemicals are to be eliminated for almost all products according to sources within the EU, and as part of this deal, tariffs on EU's optical, medical, surgical equipment are all to be eliminated for 90% of EU products. Now, as per negotiations that are underway towards finalizing this deal, the deal is expected to double EU trade exports to India by 2032 is what EU is saying. And tariff on EU's aircraft, spacecraft are all to be eliminated for almost all products is what EU has claimed. They've said that tariffs of up to 44% on machinery, 22% on chemicals, 11% on pharmaceuticals will be mostly eliminated. Let me take this to my colleague Geeta Mohan, joining us live from the newsroom on this exclusive scoop that India Today has and what the breakdown entails.
Well, these are the nitty-gritties of what the India-EU deal is going to look like. Although it's only an announcement today, but that's a major one because this is a conversation and a negotiation that has been going on for years. And right now we're looking at the conclusion of the biggest trade deal between India and 27 member states of the European Union. So it's massive, and that's the reason why if you see the list of things where India is to benefit and Europe is to benefit, it's massive. It spans an entire stretch of all sectors, whether it's the auto sector, medical sector, space and aeronautics, defense sector. We're looking at all products that we see exchange of between India and Europe, where things are going to become way cheaper. But then, of course, all this will happen once the entire trade deal is legally scrubbed, ratified by the European Parliament, cleared there, cleared here, and that's when we'll see the implementation begin. So it's a few months or more from now that we'll actually see the implementation of this. But the way it's looking right now, it's fantastic because it not only brings down cost and prices, and both countries stand to gain when it comes to reduced tariffs between India and the European Union, but also the fact that it comes at a time when Europe and India are reeling under massive tariff threats by the United States of America. Alternatives, becoming a supply chain hub, a manufacturing hub is essential, and over here that is exactly what the two sides are looking at, ensuring that there is forward movement in terms of trade, that trade blocks and roadblocks when it comes to doing trade between India and Europe are done away with. But on the other hand, also looking at manufacturing, make in India, getting all these companies to maybe come and assemble and produce in India, making a lot of these automobiles, medical equipments much cheaper. So it's like Ursula von der Leyen herself put it, mother of all deals. But then again, this is an announcement or the conclusion of the deal. Legal scrubbing will take place thereafter, where both sides will have to see and ensure that every word is not just on paper, but is legally looked into and cleared. And then it'll go to the European Parliament on their end and over here as well, needing clearances. And once the clearances come through, that's when the implementation of this big trade deal will take place.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And this trade deal that is being watched very closely by the West, the aim, of course, also is to reduce dependence on China and Europe, looking at India not just as a trade partner, but also as a strategic counter is the question that is being asked. Like you're saying, Geeta, with the details coming in that exports are set to double in the next 7 years if the blueprint is exactly followed to how this trade deal is being finalized. But if we also would have players who will play spoil sport in between, how the West is watching. China, of course, understands the implications of what it will be on it as India and EU are finalizing this deal. 4:30 is when there will be a clear picture to what is happening. But how do you see it panning out?
Well, two very important parts of your question. One, the West is watching. Indeed, the West is watching. Particularly, the United States of America is the West in question over here. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, not on one but on multiple occasions, has mentioned the India-EU trade deal. He's been talking about it, saying that while we impose sanctions on Russia or countries doing business with Russia, so that the war is not fueled and paid for. On the other hand, you have Europe that says it's a victim but goes ahead and does a deal with India. So you have such statements coming in from Scott Bessent, which means they're watching very closely what this deal is going to look like, while the India-US deal still is hanging in limbo. Having said that, the other very important aspect is about how this deal is going to go through and move forward when it comes to the European countries. There are many aspects that require a lot of sensitivities of both countries and both sides. One is to do with the fact that red lines for India or of India were respected and were kept. We, according to sources, we were told that dairy has been kept out, a thing that India does not want included or be part of the deal, where they would have to accept dairy products that they do not think would be palatable or acceptable to the Indian customers, given the distinction that Europe or the West does not make between the vegetarian and non-vegetarian when it comes to dairy products. So sensitivities, keeping those sensitivities in mind. But then again, India has taken into consideration the sensitivity of carbon when it comes to companies and how much carbon footprint they do have. That will have to be accounted for. So there are various aspects that have been looked into, but in terms of monitoring, once the deal is announced, and it's not at 4:30. 4:30 is when the press briefing takes place. Around 1:15, 1:30 is when the press statements of the leadership will take place. So it's in just some time from now that we'll be seeing the leaders come out of the delegation rooms to that hall, which is already ready with all the flags and the podium. The leadership will stand there and announce conclusion of the India-EU free trade agreement.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Geeta. And we've been monitoring every development very closely.